Hey guys, Omerko here, self-taught web developer. As I mentioned in my last video where we talked about services, there are also other ways to share our data with components. One of these ways is input decorator. We can share our data from our parent component into our child component using something called input. Input is just another decorator which can be added to child component. Input decorator is able and also expects to get some data from parent component, and at that point, as we are using our input in child component data will contain whichever data we shared. Before we start using our input, I will first remove my code from my last video, so this h3 from my HTML, and in my component TypeScript file I will remove this call for service, also this service injection, user also should not be here, data service import should also be removed, in data service I will remove my user, and also I will remove this getUser method that I had. Let me also clarify for you what is parent and what is child component. So on my left side I do have this app component HTML, TypeScript and CSS file for that. If I go into HTML, inside of that component I have this app top bar, which is essentially just my app top bar component. At this given example, our top bar component would be child component and our app component would be our parent component of that child, of our top bar component. To use input decorator, I must use it on a child level, so I will go into top bar and top bar component.typescript file, and here is the place where I will use my input decorator. To use it, I will first declare it, so at input, and input should be imported from Angular/core like it is here. Then we must first initiate it, so parentheses here, and after this input I should also name this input. I will name it as a user, and that's good enough. If you wish, we can also put the type here, so the type will be any for now. This user won't exist on top bar initially, but in my app component TypeScript file I will create the user object. So user object will be equal to an object which will contain first name of John, then last name of Doe, and the age could be 22. So now, as I have the user in my app component and I wish to get it in my top bar component, the same data, we already know that top bar component is in our app component. It is a child element of our app component. As we use the input decorator, we are able to do that. Here on a top bar component, I could use brackets here, and now I could use my user that I have, my input element that I have, which is in my top bar component. I will set it equal to something from my app component, and that something will be, at this example, my user itself. So here, user. Now to check this, if this worked, I will go into my top bar component, and where I have my first Angular project, I will here put something else. For example, I will put h3 text, and I will use first name to be my user. Then I will check if the first name exists. If it does, then it will render that first name. So I will repeat that for other fields. So last name should be last name here, and age of the user should be age here. Checking this now in my browser, we can see that first name is John, last name is Doe, and age is 22. So somehow from my app component we get all the data regarding the user into our top bar component. So as we used input decorator on our user field, that meant that our user field expects some data to flow into that user. In our app component, we binded that input of user to some specific data. That specific data was also called user, and it was on our app component that we had. This was an example to show you how can you share data directly from your parent to your child components and use those in your child components. There is one more way to share data in Angular, and this one is known as sharing data from our child to a parent, so reversed. We will take a look into this in my next video. Thank you all for watching. If you like what you saw, please click like and subscribe, as I am posting new content weekly. Thank you once again, and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.